The World Baseball Classic quarterfinal matchup between Canada and USA is setting up to be epic. I think. I believe that Canada will lay it all out there on the line, and the US, despite their talent, they're going to be in tough tonight. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I do know that we're going to get treated to some very good baseball, so we'll break that down and much more coming up next on this episode of Answer the Call with Peter Vrionis. Welcome in, everybody, to Answer the Call. I'm your host, Peter Vrionis, and I am so fired up for the quarterfinal matchups in the World Baseball Classic. You got South Korea and the Dominican Republic, first pitch just after 6:30 Eastern Time, and then Canada and USA just after 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So the DR going to stay in Miami, where they've made a home for themselves, and they look unbeatable at the moment. But we are going to focus on the Canada-USA game, and if you are enjoying the content on Answer the Call, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because the support has truly been unbelievable in the first few videos on this channel. Don't stop it right there. It costs you nothing to subscribe, and it helps me out a ton, so thank you all for your support. But let's get into the video. First off, I want to focus on the Canada side of things here, because I am Canadian and I will have a rooting interest in this game. However, I will not diminish what the United States have done and the way that they've looked. Apart from that game against Italy, where they didn't field their best lineup and there were some questionable comments made from the manager Mark DeRosa on MLB Network, I do believe that they have the best roster in this tournament, and they have assembled what I believe to be the best U.S. roster to ever represent the country at the WBC. So Canada is going to be in tough. But Canada also had one of their signature moments in World Baseball Classic history by beating Team USA in 2006, which is not something that anyone saw coming. And if we want to take a look at how that ties into this matchup tonight, well, Canada had a couple of major leaguers on that roster, I believe 4 or 5, and now they have a lot more at their disposal, and I believe that this is the best iteration of Team Canada that we have seen at this tournament. So even though the U.S., I believe, is sending their best, I believe we could say the same for Canada, despite a few missing pieces. But let's get into it. This is what Cal Quantrill had to say after his incredible performance against Cuba, which vaulted Canada into their first ever quarterfinal at a World Baseball Classic. He said, "We're not here for a participation ribbon. We're here to compete." And compete is exactly what they did in Pool A. Now, you could take a look at the offensive numbers. I think Canada is going to need a lot more from their top dogs if they have any chance of beating the U.S. tonight. They're entering as massive underdogs, plus 650 underdogs. So that is not for the faint of heart. That's not really a gamble. That's a shot in the dark if you are putting any sort of money on that side of things. But Canada will need a lot from their top dogs. But I will say the weather conditions in Puerto Rico, the wind, a lot of that factored into seeing low offensive numbers from all 5 teams in that pool, Puerto Rico included, who also moved on to the quarterfinal. So Canada had a 715 OPS as a team. Puerto Rico was even worse than that. So we didn't see those gaudy offensive numbers that we saw in Pool B that featured Italy, Mexico, and of course the United States. But Cal Quantrill saying they're not here for a participation ribbon, and I love that mentality. Do not back down. And just for comparison, Team USA, 22 MLB All-Stars, 7 MVP awards, 6 Cy Young awards. Now, of course, Clayton Kershaw is grouped into that, and he's not really much of a factor anymore. As a matter of fact, I believe he was actually replaced on the roster. And Team Canada pales in comparison, unfortunately, to them, with just 2 MLB All-Stars and 0 MVP awards, 0 Cy Youngs. So Canada will be in tough. But I do believe that this is the best roster that they sent. And Blue Jays manager even chimed in, who had a pretty memorable quote when asked about Team Canada and Team USA facing off in the gold medal game at the Olympics in men's hockey and in women's hockey as well. Let's not diminish that. But John Schneider had this to say: "Baseball in Canada has come a long way. It'll be a fun matchup. Canada seems to take the underdog mentality when it comes to baseball. They're grinders." And I like that. I think it pretty much embodies what we see. And this was Michael Soroka, who was asked about that 2006 signature win that Canada had over the U.S. at the WBC. Watching the fire that those guys played with, it doesn't get old. We're looking to do the same thing tomorrow. So these guys know what they're in for. They are absolutely not going to take the U.S. lightly, and I think that's the approach that you have to take. There's no reason for you to underestimate the States or to even let your foot off the gas for a second. You have to play perfect baseball wall to wall for pretty much 9 innings if you want any chance of beating them. Just look at what Italy had to do. They needed 3 home runs out of Vinny Pasquantino. No, that was against Mexico. Sorry about that. But Italy's pitching performance, headlined by Michael Lorenzen, was just fantastic in that game. And that is what ultimately gave them the chance to win. Now, if we take a look at the pitching matchup for tonight, it is Logan Webb, who had 6 Ks and carries an ERA of 2.25 into this one, against Michael Soroka, who was really good in the opener for Canada against Colombia. Now, there are different pitching restrictions here as we get into the knockout stages. You could throw up to 80 pitches if you are. You could throw up to 80 pitches, whereas the number was 65 in the previous round in pool play. So I think that benefits Team Canada here because they don't have the pitching depth that USA boasts. So knowing that you could ride your starters a little bit longer, I think that allows Michael Soroka to pitch deeper into this ball game, get into a little bit of a groove, and gives Canada ultimately a better chance to win than they would have had originally in pool play. So on the surface, I like this matchup. I don't think Logan Webb is necessarily overpowering. Now, if this were Paul Skeens, for example, I think Canada would have a really rough go tonight, considering the way that their offense has looked, aside from Owen Casey and Abraham Toro in pool play. So, getting Logan Webb and avoiding Paul Skeens is a win in itself. Now, Canada still has to play the game, and they still have to compete and give the U.S. their best shot here if they want any chance to win. But I think this is W number 1 and check mark number 1 in the box here for Canada. And I mentioned Owen Casey, Abraham Toro. Remains to be seen how Ernie Whitt shakes up his lineup. But we did see a little bit of a different look in that final pool play game against Cuba. Owen Casey moving up to the 5 spot, and Abraham Toro batting cleanup, who has just been an RBI machine, as has Owen Casey. So Eddie Julien was the leadoff guy for the first 3 games of pool play, and then got moved down to the 9 spot. I think a lot of that also coincided with Livan Moiniello starting for Cuba, who is one of the best left-handed starters in the world. And that says a lot about him, considering that he's not pitching in MLB. But should be a really fun one tonight. I'm obviously pulling for Canada. You can see I got the Lululemon Canada gear here. But remains to be seen how this shakes out. Like, Canada shocked the world in 2009. And I don't know if they're going to be able to accomplish something similar this time around. But I know that they are going to give it their best shot. And like John Schneider said, they're a bunch of grinders, and they embrace that underdog mentality. And I think that's what you have to do. So good luck to Canada. I'm really hoping for a close, competitive ball game. I know a lot of people south of the border are expecting USA to roll, and then Paul Skeens is lined up for that matchup against the Dominican Republic, assuming that they beat South Korea, which I do expect them to do in the 6:30 matchup. But we'll see. Really looking forward to this one. The World Baseball Classic thus far has been electric, and this is pretty much all that you can ask for when we're in March. Just competitive baseball is not something that you would get if it was just spring training action. You'd see a lot of talent. You would see starters into the game, into the 6th inning, and that's fun. That's all fine and dandy, but this means something to these players. Julio Rodriguez was asked, would he rather win a World Series or a World Baseball Classic? And he said, I'd rather win a WBC for my country, for the Dominican Republic. And it just shows you the meaning that this tournament has for all of these players that are supporting, that are representing their countries. So I know a lot of Canadians would have liked to have seen Cade Smith and Matt Brash, But Ernie Whitt has stuck to his guns, did not add any players after pool play, whereas the U.S. did. They added Tyler Rogers, relief pitcher from the Blue Jays, and they've replaced Clayton Kershaw on the squad. So you could see that the U.S. is making changes, improving their roster. Brian Bayo returned to the Red Sox, no longer on the roster for the DR because he's not expected to pitch here in this knockout round. So teams are looking to get better. Canada is sticking with their guys, the ones that got them there, the ones that got them to their first ever quarterfinal at a World Baseball Classic. And hopefully Ernie Whitt gets rewarded for his loyalty to his guys with a win today, or at least a competitive game, and one that Canadian baseball fans will hold their heads up high with and be proud of. I do believe that we will get that tonight from a Canada perspective. I kind of expect the U.S. to win. Not holding my breath for a Canada W here, but should be a lot of fun. And I see a lot of people south of the border as well throwing out the comparison that, we stole your sport in hockey at the Olympics, and now we're going to do it again in baseball. Now we're going to embrace that underdog mentality in baseball. Come on, man, give me a break. Look at the roster that you have: 7 MVP awards, 22 MLB All-Stars. I think you'll be all right. I do think that the U.S. will win today, but this is not some underdog David versus Goliath type of thing, as a lot of people are making it out to be. Canada has a lot of good big leaguers in its own right, and I think they will put that on display tonight in Houston at Daikin Park. Should be a lot of fun. Let me know what your prediction is in the comment section down below. And again, if you've been enjoying these Answer the Call videos, I'm your host, Peter Vrionis. Make sure to hit that subscribe button because it's free and it helps me out a ton. And I will see you all in the next videos. Hopefully, I'm talking to you about a Canada win tomorrow. Go Canada.